KTLA-5 Sports Final, powered by your Southern California Ford dealers.
Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Ford Sports Final. Raiders just finishing up the preseason right here on KTLA-5, and we have got a lot of silver and black talk to get to, as well as the rest of the NFL. We've got an hour to dive into this final preseason finale. Our in-house expert, Rashawn Haylock. Steve Hartman's going to join us a little bit later on. Rashawn, all the exhibitions are over. From here on out, we're playing for keeps. You excited about the regular season?
I'm pumped. We got this cathedral here in Los Angeles named SoFi Stadium, and it was there last year, and I was able to get inside and experience it. But now, just being there for the preseason games, it's got some life, Darren.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we're going to have the fans this year. We got a lot to get to over the next hour. Year 4 of John Gruden's second era with the Raiders. Is the pressure mounting? Plus, the Rams have had several new offensive weapons added for head coach Sean McVay, and the Chargers have a new head coach and a lot of hope riding on sophomore quarterback Justin Herbert. And we'll also take a look around the league at some of the biggest question marks ahead of the 2021 season. But we begin with the end of the preseason and the game that you just saw right here on KTLA-5. Raiders and Niners, the final dress rehearsal and the rosters. How will they look after this weekend for John Gruden? None of the regulars played for the Silver and Black, but the Niners starters played 2 series, 3rd and goal from the 1. This is Jimmy Garoppolo rolling to his right, decides to keep it, bullies his way in for the opening score of the game. Then, second quarter action, Trey Lance, read option, keeps it. He strolls into the end zone to put the Niners up 2 scores. Raiders offense struggled throughout the game. This is Nathan Peterman, throws a bad pass over the top, picked off by Clinton Dix. Returns at 36 yards, sets up an easy Niner touchdown as the Raiders drop their preseason finale with a 34-10 loss. The Raiders finish the preseason at 2-1. And now we'll get ready for their season opener when they host the Ravens on Monday, September 23rd. Rashawn, John Gruden is now entering year 4 of his 10-year deal. Do Raider fans have the right to have some expectations? Should we expect the playoffs this year?
Somehow along the way, Darren, John Gruden got people to believe he was no longer the coach that got traded by the Raiders or got fired by the Bucs, but all of a sudden he was this football genius all those years in the Monday Night Football booth. And he gets this 10-year contract, and it's worth $100 million, and people talk about that. And for everyone upset about John Gruden's contract, look, you're worth what they're willing to pay you, so you just need to get a better agent, right? As for Gruden, you look at what he's been able to do during his course there with the Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders, and last season they had a couple of tough losses. You look at the second half of that year. They had 3 games in which they lost it in the last minute, 45 seconds, or in overtime. And so that immediately points to the defense. So there's a change made on that side of the ball in terms of bringing in the new defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley. But if you're Mark Davis and you make that sort of investment into your coach, a 10-year investment, you know that it's not going to change overnight, right? He knew that this thing had to be shaken up, tore down from the bottom, and rebuilt back up. And so obviously he's going to give him time. Not nearly the return on investment yet, but still time. We're not at the halfway point yet, Darren.
A lot of patience for Mark Davis. I wonder what Al Davis would be at the same time. I think he'd be a little bit more intense.
You're fired.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk this offseason about potentially moving quarterback Derek Carr, but he's expressed his desire to stay in silver and black for life. Is he the right guy? You know, I mean, he's had 3 seasons under Gruden, 4,000-plus yards. Is he the right quarterback to get them over the top?
Why does no one want Derek Carr, Darren? Why do we continue to have this narrative, right? Now, obviously, there was a lot of talk about Russell Wilson in the offseason. If you can go get Danger Russ, then obviously you do that. Derek Carr isn't a top 5 quarterback, nor a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but he is more than serviceable. You just talked about the 3 straight years of 4,000 yards. He is a guy that has showed that he has the ability to lead a team to the playoffs. Now, it's up to this Raider organization to surround him with the pieces to be able to do so. And I don't think that they've consistently been able to do that. You look this year, I look at their wide receiving core, I'm not quite sure that they've done enough in that area as well as other areas to allow him to be successful.
There's been a lot of talk about Henry Ruggs, put a lot of work in, route running. He's worked on his core this offseason. When you look at the weapons that Carr has to work with, what do you think? I mean, Ruggs he has to step up. He has to do better than he did in his rookie year.
Just 26 catches in his rookie season. And the Raiders are similar to the team that they played just a moment ago, the San Francisco 49ers, in which their tight end is their #1 target, and Darren Waller. And so for Henry Ruggs, look, you remember that draft class last year, Darren? The 2020 wide receiver class was loaded, right? Expected to be one of the best that we've seen in quite some time. And the Raiders went out and said, Henry Ruggs, you're the best one in that group. Now remember, he wasn't even the #1 wide receiver on his team in college. Jerry Jeudy was. They took him over Jeudy. They took him over Brandon Ayuk. They took him over C.D. Lamb. Ruggs is a speed guy. He's a burner. He can blow the lid off of the top of a defense. But can he do that stuff in the middle, the intermediate routes, the short stuff? Can he be a complete wide receiver? I'm not quite sure that he can be. And this group is going to miss Nelson Aguilar. I'm a big fan of having a vet in the room. And I'm not sure that this Raiders wide receiving core has that vet now that Aguilar is gone.
But, of course, it all starts with the ground game. You got to be able to run the football in the National Football League. Josh Jacobs seemed to take a step back last year. They bring in Kenyon Drake, who had a career year in Arizona. What about the chemistry of this 1-2 punch that the Raiders will have this year?
I think that goes back to what we just talked about with the wide receiving core, right? You invest that type of money into a guy like a Kenyon Drake. $11 million, that's a lot for a backup running back, but he's someone who can help you in the passing game as well, Darren, in addition to what he can do carrying the ball. Drake is a guy who really can do it all. If you want to give it to him on the early downs out of the backfield, he can carry it. If you want to give it to him out of the backfield in the passing game, he can be able to supply that for you as well. Drake seems to think there's a whole lot to be seen of this Raiders offense in the 2021 season. Of course, we haven't seen any of it in the preseason because Gruden hasn't played any of his starters. So we'll see if, you know, the stuff that he's been talking this offseason, if there's actually some credence to it. But this is a guy who they invested a lot in, and they think that he can help them in multiple ways.
Man, there's a lot to feel good about on the offensive side of the ball. It's the other side where you have some questions. Time for a quick break, but so much more to come. Coming up, going to switch to the other side. Talk about the defense. Little Raiders defense. They had a tough year last year. Gus Bradley brought in to fix things. What kind of impact will he have? Plus, a bit later, check in on the Rams and their new look offense featuring veteran quarterback Matthew Stafford and their plans for the running game by committee. And the Chargers handed their head coaching job to one of Sean McVay's former assistants, Brandon Staley. All that and plenty more on this special post-game edition of Ford Sports Final. Back in a moment.
See if Fitzpatrick can pull a trick out. He got hit as he lofted it up. Blown coverage! Matt Collins is inbounds at the 41. And disaster has struck for the Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders, one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL last season, finished near the bottom of nearly every category, including 30th overall in points allowed per game and takeaways, 29th in sacks. We welcome you back to this special edition of the Ford Sports Final. When the dust settled on 2020, addressing their defense was at the top of John Gruden's list. With the Chargers in transition, Gus Bradley became available. So Gruden brings him in to fix the team's biggest problem. Why was last year so challenging for this Raiders defense?
You know the saying, Darren, ABC always be closing. Defense couldn't close. You saw that clip there from the Dolphins game. That was one of the games that I talked about in the last segment. That Dolphins game, there was a Chiefs game earlier in the season, as well as a Chargers game in Vegas, in which L.A. was able to come from behind and beat them in overtime. You get the lead late in games, you got to be able to seal the deal. And now, I had the privilege to be at a lot of Charger games last season, and I'm a big Gus Bradley proponent. This is a guy who he created the Legion of Boom, if you remember, up there in Seattle. This Charger defense last season was top 10 in the league. That was without Derwin James. That was with Joey Bosa in and out of the lineup because of injury. And that was with Melvin Ingram pretty much non-existent. He had 0 sacks last season and very limited time, the worst year of his career. Yet this was still a top 10 unit under Gus Bradley. One thing that is simple for this Raider team, and they got to be able to take the ball away. Just 15 takeaways last year. You got to be able to get your hands on some balls and get it back to Derek Carr in that offense.
Well, one of the things they did a few days ago, the Raiders made a move to acquire Denzel Perryman from the Panthers. Played well under Bradley with the Chargers. You think he's going to impact this defense for the Silver and Black?
I think so. I think more than anything, you got to have a guy in there that knows your system, right? And Perryman had arguably his best year as a pro last season. If you're into the analytics and all the metrics, according to Pro Football Focus, the only linebacker that was rated higher than Perryman last year was a guy named Fred Warner up in San Francisco, and he's really, really good. And so Perryman knows the system, similar to Casey Hayward, who came over from the Chargers as well in that secondary. And so having familiarity, having another voice besides your voice to be able to convey to the players exactly what it is that you're trying to do on the defensive side of the ball, I think is going to help tremendously. And also, they've been banged up at that linebacker position, which caused them to bring Perryman in. And so if he can stay healthy, it can pay huge dividends for this Raiders defensively.
One of the 14 new faces that will be there for Gus Bradley.
You got to shake it up, Darren. You got to shake it up.
They got 4 or 5 new starters. Given all that we've said about this team, playoffs, is that realistic?
Absolutely. I think it's realistic, and I think the AFC West is going to be much tougher than a lot of people think. And we're going to throw Denver out. Just throw Denver out the way. I know we got some Denver Bronco fans here in our sports department. Sorry, Chris. But we're just going to go throw Denver to the side. But you look at the Chiefs, obviously they're not going anywhere. You look at this Raider team, I think they should be improved on the 500 campaign they had a year ago. And then also the Chargers. I think they should be really good and really improved this year under first-year head coach Brandon Staley. Justin Herbert is making his ascension into being one of the top quarterbacks in the league. You got Derwin James back on the back end of that secondary as well. And so I think it's going to be a gritty, grinded out type of AFC West, but I do believe the Raiders will be able to be in the mix and fight for a playoff spot.
You see that weakness on that offensive line. That's an interesting thing because they brought a lot of people in there. They mixed it up, like you say, shake it up. So it'll be interesting to see if that offensive line can come together under Tom Cable. Thank you very much, Rashawn. Time for us to take another break. Rashawn's going to step aside. Guess who's in the house? The loose cannon, Steve Hartman, is going to join us for a little Raiders history lesson. The Silver and Black had 13 seasons here in Los Angeles, full of highs and lows. And being the Raiders never lacked drama. Plus, with Jared Goff banished, Sean McVay finally has what he says is the quarterback and the offense he wants to run. Will it be enough to get the Rams into the postseason? And a bit later, McVay's former lieutenant jumps to the top job with the Chargers. The Ford Sports Final post-game edition continues in just a moment. Welcome back. The Raiders are gearing up for their second season in Las Vegas. For most, the team will always be most identified with Oakland. But still, there were also those 13 seasons the Silver and Black did belong to Los Angeles. It was a wild ride, to say the least. Initially, the Raiders and Los Angeles looked like a match that couldn't fail. A marriage many predicted could have had all the impact of a mega-budget Hollywood epic. The team was ruled and commanded by Al Davis, a brilliant though enigmatic owner, one who did what he pleased without much regard for league rules or traditions. In fact, the move to LA didn't become reality until he had beaten a court challenge by his fellow owners. Davis's team of leading men was an overachieving gang of ribbalds, cast-offs, and troublemakers, along with more than a fair share of photogenic superstars. They were Peckinpah and Kurosawa's gridiron alter egos. The Wild Bunch and the Seven Samurai all rolled into one. Take no prisoners depth chart, a mixture of expendables and dream team, years before anyone had ever uttered such labels. Hollywood and the rest of the city took immediate notice, while a brash new fanatical fan base invaded the Coliseum's antiquated bleachers, serving up notice behind a lack of tact that they had this team's back. More than a few movie and television stars fell into line as well. Everyone was intrigued. And for a while, it all worked, with the now Los Angeles Raiders providing a compelling first act, reaching the playoffs in their first 4 straight seasons. In 1984, they destroyed the heavily favored Redskins in the Super Bowl, and did it in true Raider fashion, with a game plan featuring no names and all pros. Little-known linebacker Jack Squarick put Washington on its heels with a devastating interception at the end of the first half. Then the team's glamorous and flashy Marcus Allen iced the game and his own immortality with one of the most memorable jaunts in league history.
Marcus Allen, play on which he should have lost 5 yards, and he goes 74 to score.
The team was riding high. Then, before anyone really took notice, things began to slide away. Davis was never enamored with the Coliseum and wanted either serious upgrades or a new state-of-the-art venue. He began a dalliance with the city of Irwindale, which was offered a site inhabited at the time by a huge gravel pit. Still, it was a location Davis claimed could be transformed into an NFL-worthy stadium. When that fell through, the media and the city began to take a harder and more cynical look at the man who referred to himself as a dark genius. The Raiders were still attracting great players like Bo Jackson, those who wanted to wrap themselves in the fabled renegade lore. Though, in reality, the magic was gone. Over the next 10 seasons, the team's winning percentage dipped sharply and racked up several subpar seasons. Davis smoldered, angry with what he perceived as a lack of support. Following a contract dispute, Allen was benched for most of his final 3 years with the team. During a Monday night game interview, the running back accused Davis of trying to ruin his career. In 1993, Allen jumped to the Kansas City Chiefs. 1 year later, the Raiders jumped too, back to Oakland and the Alameda County Coliseum, which promised improvements and expanded seating if the prodigal franchise would consider a return home. And so transpired another bitter end, with the Raiders' once promising story falling victim to an underwhelming script. Great for half a movie, but eventually suffering through the indignity of a bad ending. Even so, and now almost 30 years since their departure, those passionate Raiders fans remain loyal, still reverent and grateful for those first few seasons when the Raiders' SoCal journey seemed fresh and infinite. And perhaps that is the most appropriate way to remember our brief and now fading partnership with the Silver and Black, an enduring lesson not only in what was, but what might have been. Steve Hartman joins us now. Steve, you worked with the Raiders so long ago when they were here, and they had all that success during their Los Angeles years. Why do you think it's been such a struggle the last 20 years?
Well, I think, Darren, really when you go back to the whole move to L.A. and understanding, of course, Al Davis was in charge of the whole operation when it came to the Raiders, including personnel. When the Raiders moved to L.A., they were involved in so much litigation, and it was ongoing. Remember, the NFL owners voted unanimously to not have the Raiders leave Oakland to come to L.A., and Al did it anyway. So he was caught up in the courtrooms, and unfortunately, when you're also the general manager of the team, you lose sight of things. And suddenly, unproductive drafts took the Raiders from perennial Super Bowl contender to an also-ran. Now, they briefly got it back, little glimpses along the way, but now when you look back, of course, since 2002, the last time this team went to the Super Bowl, that 2002 season, they've had exactly one winning season. In the last 18 years, one winning season. So when you look back on those days, when the Raiders were still the Raiders, I like to say, boy, that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah, and of course the team now belongs to Las Vegas. It seems like a good fit. How do you think their tenure is going to go now as they get acclimated to Sin City?
Well, you know, I've talked to people in Vegas, like, you know, how much are you into the Raiders? Look, the main Raider base is still right here. We just saw a Rams-Raiders preseason game where the Raider fans outnumbered them 3-1. With all due respect to the Rams and Chargers fans out there, the city still belongs to the Raiders. So they're going to be dependent on Southern California Raider fans to go to Vegas. It's very simple as far as Vegas is concerned and their fans. Remember, when they had the Golden Knights, their NHL expansion franchise, in their first year get to the Stanley Cup final, that's one way you're going to get fans. And I think the same thing is going to happen here with the Raiders. If the Raiders win, the fans will show up. If the Raiders lose, and again, they've had just one winning season in the last 18, they're not going to be there. So we always talk about the Raider faithful, but as we saw in Los Angeles, Darren, you know, after they won the Super Bowl, they're averaging well over 70,000 fans a game. Within a couple of years, they were down to 50,000 fans, and it diminished from there. So winning cures all.
It's going to be a terrific road trip. You should wake up on a Sunday morning, hop on the shuttle, get over to Vegas. It's going to be terrific to see Raiders football in this upcoming season. Halftime here on the Ford Sports Final. When we come back, we're talking a little Rams. Matthew Stafford has joined the fold with full confidence of Sean McVay. Steve looks ahead at what we can expect from this 12-year veteran, while the Chargers' Justin Herbert sets up for only his second NFL campaign after shattering numerous records as a rookie and giving Charger fans a new reason for hope. We'll break into all that. Ford Sports Final. Back in a moment.
I'm gonna just try to be the best version of me, the best player I can be, whatever they ask. Whether it's, just running down, going to block somebody, catching the ball, running the ball, whatever they need me to do, I'm gonna try to do as best as I can to try to, fill whatever void that they need to fill.
Yeah, you saw a couple of those preseason games. The Rams needed some help in that offensive backfield and went after it earlier this week, swinging a deal for the Patriots' Sony Michel. In 2 of his 3 seasons in New England, he led the offense with more than 200 carries. Though a quad injury limited him to 79 carries, cost him 6 games last year. Michel, part of that Patriots team that broke the Rams' hearts in Super Bowl 53. Cam Akers out for the season with the Achilles. Darrell Henderson banged up his thumb at practice. They say he'll be fine for the regular season. What do you expect from this ground game for the Rams?
Well, they better expect a lot. I mean, as far as Sony Michel is concerned, his time in New England wasn't great, knowing that the Patriots did not pick up the option, 5th-year option on his rookie contract. There was no future for Sony Michel in New England. They had already written him off. But what choice do the Rams have? I mean, they got to find a running back, because without an effective running game, this offense just doesn't work. And we know that because when this offense was clicking full steam in 2017 and 2018, they had the most productive running back in the league in Todd Gurley. Late in that 2018 season, when Gurley went down with the injury and tried to come back, the offense was never the same. So this is no secret right now. This offense only works if the running game is motoring. So they better hope that Sony Michel and whoever else is in that backfield is effective, because if they don't have a running game, this team is going to be carried by their defense once again.
Well, he could have an instant impact. Michel, one of several new faces for Coach Sean McVay, who recently took some time to talk about the upcoming season with our own David Pingalore.
I think you look at it, anytime that you lose a player of Cam Akers' magnitude, that's a big loss. And Darrell Henderson's done a lot of good things, but I think it was important to get somebody in here that was a good complement to him, and also some of these younger running backs we have. He's got big-time game experience. He's been in a system that they're doing all the little things the right way. They speak very highly of him, and he's got a track record. He scored the only touchdown and broke our heart a couple years ago, but excited about getting to work with Sony.
So Matthew Stafford is in here as your starting quarterback. What has it been like for him to kind of get acclimated with the team up to this point, and also the relationship that you have to develop with him? Yeah, it's great. I've really enjoyed working with him every day. He positively pushes everybody around him to be a little bit better, and he's so steady. He's so consistent with the way he approaches every day, and looking forward to seeing him lead us this year. When it comes to that quarterback position, how do you deal with the fact that what could happen, on the injury front? Does that concern you at all? I think you try not to worry about the things that you can't control, but the things that you can in terms of trying to set up practices that are in alignment with minimizing the risk for injury, but also pushing guys positively day in and day out in a really physical game. And so you try not to let it worry you, but you do want to make sure that you're controlling the things you can with the way you set up every single day. And then sometimes things happen that are out of your control that you have to just let go. And how excited are you for this upcoming season finally to start in the next few weeks? Excited, really excited. I think you feel really good about this team. It's always about the people that you're around, and whether it be players, coaches. This is as good as I felt. We got to go do it, but I think we've got all the pieces that you can ask for to have some special things happen for us. This is a ball club with a lot of high expectations. How do you deal with, the criticism from outsiders? Spitballs on a battleship. You just try to brush it off. I think, you don't let it affect you, and in some instances it positively motivates me. And so
I always say to our guys, pressure's a privilege. You really like that. And then, sometimes you guys don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Of course, the team's biggest move, obviously, in the offseason was acquiring Matthew Stafford. How do you think he's going to impact the team with his leadership, his talent?
Again, Darren, I don't know. I mean, this is a team that had a quarterback that for a couple of years, and Jared Goff looked like he was going to be a star in this league, and then the running game abandoned him, and suddenly the play-action passing wasn't as effective. I'll put it this way, as far as Sean McVay is concerned, he better hope that Matthew Stafford delivers a much better product at quarterback, because when you think about it, they unloaded future first-round picks just to get rid of the Goff contract in order to acquire Matthew Stafford. And no fault of Stafford, he was on a perennial loser in Detroit. In 12 seasons, he only won 8 games total against teams that ended up with a winning record that season.
Wow.
In 12 years, 8-67 in games like that. So this is a whole new thing for Matthew Stafford to be on a team this good. So he's going to be playing in games, hopefully, for the Rams, unlike he's ever seen before. He's never won a playoff game. So we'll see. As far as throwing a football, Stafford is amongst the best. But that's not what it takes necessarily to win. Do you have it in you to win big games? I guess we're going to find out.
He's going to have a lot of pressure on him. Also, Sean McVay finally has the quarterback of his choosing. He's got the offense. Is he facing some pressure, you think, for the Rams to kind of take us? No longer is Goff the scapegoat.
Well, and that's the very point, Darren. You've hit it right there. In other words, they did make Jared Goff the scapegoat. The fact that the offense is there, but we just don't have the quarterback to deliver the offense. But when you talk to people about the McVay offense over the years, and really to me, it was exposed in the Super Bowl when he went against the master, Bill Belichick, and the Rams had no offense that day, just coming up with 3 points. They haven't looked the same offensively since. It's a very basic set. And again, when your offensive line is at the level they were in 2017 and 18, and you have Todd Gurley, then all of a sudden that offense looks pretty good. So, look, what do they need? They need their offensive line to step up. They need to get that running game going, and they have to hope that Matthew Stafford delivers in big game situations. If that doesn't happen, then a lot of people are going to have a little bit of a different look of Sean McVay. Still, obviously, an extremely young coach. But that genius label that was put on him very early on in his run with the Rams is wearing off. It could be a big rebound year for him if Stafford's effective. If this offense starts playing well, that would return. But if it doesn't, then people are going to wonder, was he all that he was hyped up to be?
It's intriguing, to say the least. On the other side of the ball, you have Aaron Donald. You got Jalen Ramsey. They can solve a lot of problems, but you do have a new defensive coordinator in Raheem Morris. Do you think they're going to maintain that top defense level in the NFL?
Well, you mentioned the defense, and when you got the best, I still believe right now Aaron Donald is the best player in the NFL. There is no one that dominates his position to the level Aaron Donald does. So let's just start right there. Because as we saw when he got hurt in the playoffs, suddenly that defense looked very mortal. But when he's on top of his game, forget it. There's no scheme that's going to stop Aaron Donald. So for Raheem Morris, when he walks in and knows number 99's in the middle of the defense, that's a great starting point. And then on the back end, of course, you got Jalen Ramsey, who proved again last year that the Rams dealing 2 number 1s for the best back end cover corner in the league was well worth it. He is of that level. So when you got the best guy up front and the best guy in the defensive backfield, if they're both healthy, if they can survive a 17-game regular season, the Rams are still the best defense in this league.
All right, they made it to the divisional round last year. They lost to the Packers. Do you like them to win the NFC West? And how about the playoffs, Steve?
As far as the NFC West is concerned, right now I might lean slightly to the 49ers, although their quarterback situation's up for grabs right now. Will Jimmy Garoppolo maintain that job? Will they go with Trey Lance, the rookie, at some point? But remember, the 49ers were banged up with all kinds of injuries a year ago. The Seahawks, I'm not so concerned about the Seahawks. I don't think Arizona's in the mix. The Rams will make the playoffs. Can they win the division? Yes. I think a lot of it is just going to depend on the health of the team. It's going to be difficult. People don't think, 16 games to 17 games. Oh, just one more game. Yeah, tell that to any NFL player. Every game is punishment in this league. But, you know, again, offensively, that's going to be the big question. If the offense clicks, if we see a significant progress in the offense from where we saw it a year ago with Matthew Stafford at quarterback, then absolutely the Rams can win the NFC West.
I'm still thinking of that stat. 6 and 64.
8 and 67 in games against teams that finished with a winning record the year that he played them.
Oh my goodness, that is
8 and
that
over
is,
12 years.
That is dramatic.
Yeah.
Time now for another break. Up next, we shift the emphasis to SoFi Stadium's other franchise, the Chargers. Get Steve's thoughts on just what the Bolts will need to do under Brandon Staley to return to the playoffs for the first time since 2018. Plus, we chat about some of the league's biggest question marks heading into the regular season. Aaron Rodgers. Play more. Quick break. We're back in a moment.
Herbert from the gun, quick delivery, near side. Eckler lunges, and he's in for the touchdown. With that, more history for Herbert. Most passing touchdowns ever by a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, Justin Herbert was pressed into action in Game 2 last season. Never looked back, breaking the rookie records for passing and total touchdowns as well as completions. He also put up the second most passing yards all time for a first-year quarterback. Steve, it's safe to say it's hard to follow up a freshman campaign like that. We always hear about the quote-unquote sophomore slump. How do you think he's going to follow up on that freshman campaign?
Well, first of all, I knew he had talent. I mean, this guy is the complete package. We know that, and I just felt like he was underscored coming out of Oregon. But here's one of the things to look for as far as Herbert is in year 2. One, as glossy as his numbers were as a rookie, think about it. He never had a real road game. There were no fans in the stands.
Right.
It's not like you're facing 75,000 screaming fans in Arrowhead. So you're in quiet stadiums on the road, and that certainly helps a rookie quarterback. The other thing to keep in mind heading into year 2 is not only do you have a new head coach, you have a new offensive coordinator. They got a new offense. And they decided, in an effort to keep him healthy, to not take a single snap during the preseason. I am hoping that Justin Herbert can match or exceed what he did in his first year. And the one thing going for him, Darren, is the fact that he had to go through a lot of changes at Oregon. Mm-hmm. They had 3 different head coaches in his years at Oregon. So this has been an ongoing thing for him where it's every year it seems to be a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator. So he's been there, done that. But these are things to keep in mind going into his second year.
I like the way he came in. It was kind of an unexpected beginning.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
And he really played well. Obviously, one of the areas that was glaring, a glaring weakness was the offensive line. He didn't get a lot of protection. They drafted Rashawn Slater with the first-round pick. They made some moves in free agency, brought in some people to beef up that offensive line. You think that they've done enough to address that area?
I do. I think we're going to see a vast improvement in the Chargers' offensive line from what we saw a year ago, which, like you said, isn't saying much because they were not very good a year ago. But, yeah, you talk about Slater, who, by the way, didn't play at all last year. He's one of those players that sat out the entire season. But the reports early on him are outstanding. And, of course, this is going to come down to the effectiveness of the passing game, hinges so much on their running game. And, you know, Austin Eckler, I think, is one of the most unsung running backs in the entire National Football League. The receiving talent is unquestioned. So when you look at that offensive line, if they do have an uptick, and remember how the season ended for the Chargers last year. They ended on a winning streak. Now, granted, they had so many losses before that, it may have been lost. But if that offensive line gives him time, if they give Herbert time and they can get an effective running game going, absolutely, we're going to see a major upgrade in the Chargers offense.
Of course, the team's most decisive offseason move was replacing Anthony Lynn with hotshot defensive guru Brandon Staley, who did a great job with the Rams last season. What do you think about the impact of this young guy on this Chargers?
Well, I've talked to a lot of people about him. I haven't had a chance to meet him yet, but everything I'm hearing is glowing about Brandon Staley. Now, he was only a coordinator for 1 year. And when we talked about the Rams earlier, Yeah, he was the coordinator for the #1 defense when you have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. So how much was that him? How much was that the players? But the early reports is that Brandon Staley has a plan. Now, I'm a little concerned early on. The Chargers have had so many injuries over the years, and they really cited on caution by holding everybody out during this preseason. And you could say, well, there was no preseason a year ago. Okay, but the Chargers also lost a lot of games early last season. So it might be a process for this team. I don't know what we're going to see early in the season for the Chargers, but if they can stay healthy, and that's a big hit with all these Charger fans. Yeah.
What do you see when you look at this team? Can they hold up for an entire season? And you're adding an extra game.
Well, I mean, this is a question for every team, but it just seems like the Chargers had Derwin James obviously is a prime example of that. I felt he should have been Defensive Rookie of the Year a couple years ago. Darius Leonard with the Colts beat him out. But, I mean, when you look at the young talent they have, whether it's a Joey Bosa or a Derwin James on the defensive side and all the offensive weapons, and now a quarterback that could be one of those quarterbacks that we'll be talking about for a decade, it is about injuries. It is about just everyone staying healthy. And if they can't do that, then they're going to be a middle-of-the-pack team. But if they can stay healthy, can they get back to the 12-win level we saw a few years back? I don't know if they could get there, but with a 17-game schedule, could this team go to 11-6? Possible. And 11-6 will probably, remember there's 3 wild cards now in each conference, probably gets you a ticket to the postseason. So a lot of things have to go right, but the potential's there. And health, as always, and we always say this, but I don't know what it's about. I don't know what water they're drinking. A lot of people have been saying maybe they need a new training regimen. They just got to stay healthy.
Right.
And it's been a big frustration for Charger fans, I know. But the talent's there. They got a lot of impact guys right now on this Chargers roster.
It always looks good on paper, right?
Yeah, they just got to keep the right guys healthy. That's what they got to do.
Obviously, whenever you talk about the AFC West, it starts and ends with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. With that said, where do the Chargers wind up in the AFC West this year?
Well, I think they're the second best team right now, on paper at least. Look, no one's close to the Chiefs yet. But, you know, I heard Rashawn earlier talking about the Raiders' chance of making the playoffs. And, you know, a lot of things have to go well for them. But for the Chargers, it's about keeping their stars healthy. If Derwin James can get a complete season in, if Joey Bosa can get a complete season in, if they can get Justin Herbert to even match what he did as a rookie, Keenan Allen, when you look at the guys they have, they're Pro Bowl caliber players. You keep those guys healthy over 17 games, absolutely, this Chargers team can find themselves in the postseason. But remember the number. I don't think 10-7 gets in. 10-7 is going to be right on the cusp if you're a wild card team. So I'm thinking you got to get to 11 wins. That's a big year. 11-6. That's a big year. So for that to happen for both the Chargers or the Raiders behind the Chiefs, put it this way, you got to win the games you're supposed to win. You can't have those hiccup games where you lose to a bad team. Those will come back to haunt you.
Yeah, the Raiders can tell you about that all last year.
All the time.
All right, time for our final break. Still to come, we're going to talk about a few of the more compelling stories around the NFL heading into the regular season, including Aaron Rodgers, who indicated this season is likely his last dance at Lambeau. We'll have that. Ford Sports Final Postgame edition returns in just a moment.
In Los Angeles when we scrimmaged the Rams. Our starters had 2 good days down there. It's going to be a unique challenge for every team in the league this year. There's going to be some idle time before the opener. First things first, you know, we got to cut the roster down to 53, and that'll be the process that we'll really negotiate our future here and how we handle next week.
John Gruden talking about the final preseason game. They lost to the 49ers. You saw it here on KTLA 5. What do you think about how a lot of these teams don't play their starters in the preseason?
Well, and it's also interesting because last year there was no preseason, and some coaches did, some coaches did not play their starters. And we have one other interesting note here. We have a bye week before the season begins. We've never had this before. There's no NFL football next week. The preseason ended today. we wait till September 9th when the champion Bucks go up against the Cowboys. So I think teams are just getting things in order, any COVID problems potentially. So everyone should be healthy to start the season.
All right, let's talk about some of the big storylines heading into the season. Aaron Rodgers won the MVP last year. No guarantee he returned to the Packers. Things got a little chippy with he in the front office. How do you think that storyline is going to play out?
I think a lot of people are underestimating how this could play out. I mean, essentially, he's created a lame duck situation, right? Because he's given no guarantee that he'll be back in 2022. So how do you operate with your quarterback as a lame duck? I'm not so sure this is going to work out well for the Packers. May work out for Aaron Rodgers, but it's so difficult for the team to rally around a quarterback who has pretty much made it clear he wasn't intending to come back this year, and he certainly is making no guarantees about the following year. So I think this is going to be a very difficult season in Green Bay.
How about another older player? Tom Brady turned the Bucs into Super Bowl champs in his first season there. Can he stay sharp at 44? At what point did the 21 years catch up to him?
Well, first of all, it hasn't caught up to him. Look at the guy. He's Benjamin Button. The guy's going in reverse. It's ridiculous with him. Look, until somebody can knock this guy off, he's the guy to beat. They have every returning player from that Super Bowl team. The whole starting lineup is back. Everybody. That's the same team that demolished the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. They didn't just win the Super Bowl. And remember, this is a team that was red hot down the stretch. They had to win 3 road games, including at New Orleans and at Green Bay, just to get to the Super Bowl. They got to play that game at home. But anyone that doesn't think that the Buccaneers are the team to beat are simply not paying attention. So I don't care what number you put age-wise next to Tom Brady, he's still the best quarterback in this league.
All right, let me put you on the spot. Who are your Super Bowl picks?
I think we're going to see a rare thing happen, and that is a repeat matchup in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
I still think when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, they are clearly a notch ahead of everyone. There could be contenders. Obviously, there's always a surprise team in the NFL, like Buffalo was last year with Jason Allen having that big breakout season. But to me, barring injury, and injury is always a major factor, I still think Tampa and Kansas City are a notch above every other team in this league right now.
A lot of people like the Ravens to take a step forward. No?
I don't know if they're as good as the Chiefs, and we'll see. I mean, obviously, the Ravens are unbeatable in the preseason. How about 20 straight preseason wins for them? Unbelievable. But no, I think the Chiefs, Mahomes has never lost a game like that, ever. And he's hurting. I mean, he's been thinking about the offseason, so look out. Patrick Mahomes, he would be my preseason pick right now to be the league's most valuable player.
I think the Rams can surprise some people.
Again, it all depends on that offense. Darren, if that offense can get anywhere near the level of their defense, you're right. At the very least, they'll win the NFC West.
All right, Steve. That is going to do it for us this afternoon. Our thanks to Steve Hartman and Rashawn Haylock for their insights on this special edition of the Ford Sports Final. I'm Darren Horton. Stay tuned. The KTLA 5 News at 5. Coming up next.